One of the questions that we get most often from buyers, and it usually comes after they've seen a house that they really, really like, is okay, so what happens after we find a house that we really like? How do we go about it after this? I mean, what happens? And they kind of stammer around and want to know what happens after that. Anyway, I answer that question in almost the same way every time. Been doing this a long time, so I'm kind of set in my ways. But when they ask what happens after that, I say, well, one of the first things we do is let's look this house over a little more closely, see if there's anything that we can see that might be a potential problem in your wanting to make the purchase. Because oftentimes, at first, you're just kind of looking at the home on a superficial basis, not looking it over real closely. So usually one of the first things I do is I go out and walk around the foundation. Because if there's anything that needs to be done out there, we need to know about it right away, because that can be very expensive if it's a major undertaking. But, a few cracks here and there in the brick are not uncommon at all, but if it gets much more than that, then it's something to be concerned about. Then the other thing is if we can get any good feel for what the roof looks like, whether the shingles are good or not. Then, of course, we go inside the house, see if we see any cracks inside the house, turn on some of the faucets, see how they're draining, see how the heat and air seems to be working. Just all those kind of things that you take a look at and see. Just make sure that doesn't seem to be any really big issues with the home before we think about making an offer. Then the next thing I always say right after that is, okay, so what I do is I'll go back to the office and I always say I'll run the numbers. And by that, I just mean that we'll look at homes that have sold in the area. That's recent sales, usually in the last 9 months, sometimes 12 months, depending on how many sales there are in that particular neighborhood. But we look at homes that have sold that are similar, homes that were built within 5 or 6 years on either side of the house. So if it was built in the year 2000, we might compare it to homes that were built in 1995 to 2005. Then we look at homes that are similar in size. So if it's got 1,800 square foot, you might look from 1,600 foot up to 2,000 square feet. What we're trying to do is see what similar homes have actually sold for in the last 9 months. That way we can get a pretty good gauge of what it might be worth. Now, that doesn't mean all those homes have the same finishing details or anything, but at least that gives us a good idea, because if it's in the same neighborhood, and that's what we like to do, we like to find homes in the same neighborhood, they're going to probably have some pretty similar finishes. Doesn't mean that they're all in the same condition, because some houses can be in great condition and in some houses the occupant might not have taken care of. But anyway, that's what we do, and that's what I mean by run the numbers. And then we sit down and I go over that with them, and I just tell them that I think based on these numbers, the house is priced fairly, or it's not priced fairly, it's too high, or it's actually priced very well, which is unusual. But anyway, we do look for that situation, and it actually happens sometimes. But that way we'll know what we might be able to negotiate in the way of closing costs to be paid by the seller. Maybe if there's any chance to actually negotiate on the price. But anyway, that gives us a good idea of whether we think there's any good chances that we'll be able to make the purchase. Because if it's not priced, at least within reason, there's probably not much way we can negotiate a deal that's going to be fair to the buyer that I'm working with. So anyway, that's what I mean when I say run the numbers. I want to see what the values are. And there's some other information. Some people like to look at Zillow estimates and stuff like that, or they call them Zestimates. But that's usually hogwash. Sometimes they're close, but usually they're not within very close range at all. But anyway, that's what I mean by run the numbers. And once I run the numbers, and if they decide they like what they see, then of course I prepare a contract and explain all the contract details and how all that works. But anyway, if you're thinking about buying a home and you have any questions about the process, or just maybe real estate in general, that's fine too. Just give me a shout. You can always reach me at 405-210-5319. My best thing that I like to do is help people become homeowners. So if that's where you're at right now, I'm glad to help you in any way, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 2 months from now, or even 2 years from now. Thanks for listening to my little rant here on the what a house may be worth, or what kind of shape it's in, whatever. Give me a shout. My name is Kyle Noe, and I'm with First United Realty. I work right here in the Oklahoma City metro area. Thanks again. I hope to hear from you soon, and have a great day out there. It's pretty nice. Bye-bye.